Thank you, Matt.
The first one's always a tough one.
Are we,
Megan, are we live? Oh,
are we live?
that's what she said.
We are, okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Lorraine County Board of Commissioners meeting of April 6, 2021. This meeting will now come to order. We will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our inspirational word for the day, let us concentrate on things which make for harmony and on the growth of one another's character.
Thank you, Commissioner Lundy. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Moore?
Here.
Commissioner Lundy.
I'm here.
Okay, we will begin with A, hearing. Madam Clerk, please read the request and the pertinent information into the record.
Today is the public hearing on the proposed annexation of approximately 41.9821 acres in Eaton Township to the Village of Grafton. Attorney James R. White is the agent. This petition and map were filed in the Board of Commissioners, received by the clerk on January 22nd, 2021, for a proposed annexation of approximately 41.9821 acres in Eaton Township to the Village of Grafton for the petitioner, K&G Limited, Kevin Flanagan, authorized member. Letters were issued on January 25th, 2021 to Ken Carney Engineering, Craig Snodgrass Auditor for review and accuracy. January 27, 2021, Commissioners Resolution 2149 received and journalized regular annexation petition and set hearing for today, April 6, 2021 at 9:30 a.m., the 63rd day. February 2nd, email Grafton Village letter sent on January 27, 2021, which was not received by the United States Postal Service. February 2nd, affidavit from agent on hand delivered notices to Grafton Eaton on February 1st. February 2nd, email received from Ted Spielman, tax map stating description does match survey map. February 4th, affidavit from agent on notices sent to owners by United States Postal Service on February 3rd. February 17th, engineer stated the legal description and map are accurate in agreement with county on shared maintenance of Durkee Road. February 25th, certificate of filing from auditor on petition of annexation and resolution 2149. February 25th, email received from attorney Schrader requesting petition documents. February 25th, email received from Grafton Village, resolution 20039, shared maintenance by county on Durkee Road. March 3rd, email received from Grafton Village, resolution 21003, services to be provided on annexation and received by mail on March 5th. March 17th, affidavit from Attorney Lane on publication on March 8th in Chronicle. March 19th, affidavit from Agent White on publication on March 8th in Chronicle. April 1st, Attorney Schrader requested file documents. Clerk emailed the request. And April 1st, Attorney Schrader emailed a notice of appearance as counsel for Eaton Township.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Assistant Prosecutor Dan Petticord will have you administer the oath of to anyone who will be giving testimony today. So do you need everybody to rise? If they're
Want to
going
do it person by person we can, or we can do it all at once?
we can do it as a group. If everybody wants to rise, who plans to speak today?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll begin with the engineer for his comments. We have here today Mr. Zwick from the engineer's office.
Morning, Commissioners. You have our report dated February 17th, 2021. The legal description is accurate with regard to the territory to be annexed, and the village has prepared an agreement to the satisfaction of the county engineer to enter into agreement for road maintenance because Durkee Road is a county road and the annexation goes to the center line of the road. And as a condition of, actually, if the commissioners would approve the annexation today, you would have to enter into that agreement. The Village of Grafton has already signed their side of the agreement. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zwick. We will move to on to the attorney's comments. Attorney White. Yes, sir. So just state your name in the record there in the microphone, sir.
Sure. Hello, Commissioners. How are you today? My name is James R. White, J.R. White, you can call me.
Thank you, sir.
My client K&G thanks the Commissioners for consideration of this matter. The parcel seeking annexation is a part of an existing residential development called Fiddler's Green. The parcel seeking annexation is planned as Phase 4 of Fiddler's Green. If the Commissioners were to grant this annexation, it will bring approximately 55 new homes into the county, bring new taxpayers into the county, and new families into our community. Unfortunately, Phase 4 is not going to be possible without the annexation, as the expense of having the sewers serviced by Lorco is cost prohibitive due to the over $250,000 it would cost to have the required lift station installed that would allow Lorco to service the parcel. And this is in addition to affiliated construction costs. K&G estimates that connecting to Lorco would add upwards of $500,000 to the cost of the project in total, and it simply would not be able to do that and maintain a profitable project. So the county would lose out on those new residents in new homes. We hope to show you today the annexation of this relatively small area. So it's only 42 acres. Makes sense in every way. It makes sense for K&G. My client Kevin Flanagan, the representative of K&G, is here today. It makes sense for the many families that will purchase new residents in the county, and it makes sense for the county itself. It's K&G's hope that the Commissioners will agree this is a worthwhile investment in Lorain County that can only be facilitated with this annexation, and therefore we ask the petition to be granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, have you guys reached out to the Village of Grafton and tried to work out a JED?
There's no movement there to be able to do this in any way but through annexation,
Is it?
unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Lundy?
No, just, I guess I would just inquire again about, so the Lorco discussions haven't gone well.
No, there's been no movement from Lorco to work anything out on this as well, my understanding.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Attorney White.
Thank you, Commissioner Ong.
Okay, and we will move on to Attorney Schrader from Eaton Township. If you just would make sure you record your name under the record so our clerk has it for record purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I take the mask off while I'm talking? It's a little easier to
Yes.
hear, I think, for people. Hi, I'm Attorney Al Schrader. I represent Eaton Township. Since we last spoke, I joined a law firm, Roderick Linton Belfance in Akron, Ohio. It's at 50 South Main Street, floor 10, 44308. I did everything kind of backwards. A lot of people start out as with a law firm and then develop their private practice. I developed a successful private practice for 42 years and decided about a year ago it might actually make sense before I die to try out what the law firm experience was like. So I joined as an equity partner, and now I'm helping to run that outfit. I'm here representing Eaton Township. What I'm doing, I think, is an opening statement. I assume people have some testimony to put on through witnesses later. So as for an opening statement, I'm going to submit a brief indicating what we oppose. Here's the important part. There's some exhibits, but they're all stuff that's in your file and all stuff that was submitted by the petitioners for annexation. So they've seen this. I'm going to walk around and hand it to the, Attorney White and to Attorney Gretchen Holderman, who's the solicitor for the village. What I want, or would ask the commissioners to concentrate on is what the legal standards are for granting or denying an annexation. They're found in 709.033A, and there's 6 of them. And you have to be able to find that the petitioners for annexation proved by a preponderance of evidence each and every one of them. They can prove 5 out of the 6 and still lose if they haven't proved the 6th one. Now, to make it easier, I served 15 months on Summit County Council, roughly the equivalent of county commissioners with the executive functions taken out. What frustrated me was when people would argue over 50 million things, none of which had to do with what the legal standards were for making a decision. So I'm going to I'm going to try to make it a little bit easier. Of those 6 standards in 709-033A, we're only objecting to 2 of them. Is it unreasonably large? No, they proved that. You heard the engineers say they got the legal map and description correct. We're not contesting that. They did all the procedural stuff pretty much right. We noticed a couple of blips that we mentioned at the end of our brief, and I'll leave it to the commissioners as to how much importance they have. Interestingly, there was 2 different attorneys that filed affidavits saying that they were the agent for the petitioners, Howard Lane and J.R. White, within 3 days of one another. I believe there's only one agent for the petition, and that's J.R. White. And then the other concern we had, and again, it's just sort of I'll leave it to the commissioners what effect it has. There is a requirement under the law that you put the date that an annexation petition was signed. If you look at the date on this thing, on the annexation petition, it's 1/12/20/21. I don't know what that is. So anyway, I'm going to present these here in a second. Here's what we do object to. So we're saying they did pretty much the first 4 right. We're objecting to number 5 and number 6. Number 5 is the general good. That's what you need some testimony on. And I'm going to do a closing statement that outlines that. But what I expect the evidence to show is that the effect on the county doesn't mean anything under 709.033A. The issue is what's for the general good of the area to be annexed and also the unincorporated area within a half a mile of the area to be annexed, the unincorporated area of Eaton Township. And furthermore, the determination is you got to show, or they have to show rather, that on balance, the benefits exceed the detriments. What we're going to suggest, and what we think the evidence will show, is that every one of the services issued in the villages, listed in the village's list of services, is already provided from one provider or another. That there'll be no improvement to the area to be annexed because of this annexation. That they say they're going to provide electric, but it's actually the Rural Electric Cooperative whose service area is encompassed in this, not the Village of Grafton's Grafton Power and Light, which I think is part of AMP. As to sewer, you've already heard some argument about that with regard to Lorco. In answer to the commissioner's question, the township stood ready for a long time to try to work out some kind of JED, and the villages essentially said no. So I'm telling you again, and I'm going to have one of the trustees, Jason Monsheen, state directly as evidence, because what the attorneys say isn't really evidence, that we're ready to do a JED if they would like to do that. It would avoid a whole lot of litigation, and I think this is the 3rd shot at this particular annexation. So we're all spending money to come here and argue these things, and a JED would probably work it out better. As to water service, I believe the village resolution indicates they're going to provide it. That's in a different service area as well, and we would expect somebody will be testifying on that one. I will tell you that as a matter of procedure, the gentleman from Rural Electric Cooperative had a flat tire and indicated he might be about 20 minutes late, so I suspect he's going to be my last witness just because of practical matters. So in general, we don't see any benefit to this annexation, either to the area to be annexed or the unincorporated area of the township within half a mile. Here's what the detriments are. Number one, you got local governments fighting when they should be cooperating. That's a detriment to good government. Number two, you're going to have a fight between electrical service providers that we don't need to have. And in fact, I expect the gentleman from Rural Electric to testify that they have a number of programs that could actually help the gentleman with regard to expenses, and the petitioner never bothered to talk to Rural Electric. The other detriment to the township, of course, would be a difference in water or sewer providers. Imagine living within a half a mile and all of a sudden, right next door, the sewer or water provider changes. So then you got to wonder, what does that mean tomorrow my sewer or water provider or electric provider is going to change? That uncertainty alone is a detriment to the area, but it goes a little further than that. Among the things you wonder about is, okay, well, if there's a change in those providers, water, sewer, electric, what are the costs going to be? What's the difference there? What differences are there in the quality of service provided by those folks? As to fire, Trustee Jason Munchen happens to be a fireman, and I'll let him give testimony as to fire service, but the township fully staffs its fire department 24 hours a day. The village relies on a volunteer fire department. And not to knock any of the gentlemen that work and ladies that work for either of those two, but it's questionable whether there's going to be an advance in the quality of services to the area to be annexed in that regard either. Currently, the police protection in Eaton Township is provided by the Sheriff's Office, which, as the Commissioners know, has a vast array of equipment, programs, manpower, and so on that they can bring to bear in terms of providing safety and protection to the residents and people of the community. The Village of Grafton has a village police department. So that's an outline of what we expect the evidence to show with regard to general good. The argument under item 6 is a legal one and is much simpler to explain. The statute requires that there be an ordinance that, as a condition of annexation, the village assumes maintenance responsibility for any road that's segmented. Now, it's clear the road's segmented. It's clear that what we've got an ordinance, but it doesn't say a thing about it being a condition of annexation, at least not the one I looked at, unless there's an update that I didn't see. There was absolutely no discussion of doing this as a condition of annexation. And in fact, they attached to the ordinance a copy of an agreement that's signed just by village officials, not by anybody from the county engineer's office. And we understand the county engineer's office approves it. But when you look at about the last paragraph of that agreement, it says it can be amended at any time. And that's certainly a whole lot different than a condition of annexation. I would suggest to you that the legislature had a reason to put in that language, condition of annexation, and the failure or a reneging on that road maintenance agreement would, in theory, allow us, I don't think it's ever been done before, my research didn't find that anybody had ever reneged on anything like that, or that an annexation had ever been approved where there was an agreement but it wasn't a condition of annexation. But the lack of that means we can't go into court at some point and say, hey, there was supposed to be a condition of annexation. They got the annexation, and then the condition disappeared. So we believe that's why the legislature added the language to the statute as a condition of annexation. So those are the two reasons we believe you should deny this annexation. I want to remind you that the burden of proof is not on the township, but rather on the people seeking the annexation. And unless you have any questions, I'm going to put my mask back on and bring this, if I can find the doggone thing, and bring this to the front desk and then deliver it to opposing counsel.
So my understanding, if you don't mind, if I
Go ahead.
ask. It's not KNG, and it's not the townships, but Grafton that's not interested in a JED? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what you're going to hear from Jason Monshine, who's a trustee of Eaton Township. We've
Okay.
offered to do a JED with him for quite a while, probably 3 or 4 years. I think every time I'm at one of these annexation hearings, I mention that the township would like to do a JED.
Okay.
If you have any questions, go ahead. I think I can do a couple of things at once.
Well,
If-
to do questions, though, you have to stay there for the record.
Oh, okay. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Moore?
Well,
Commissioner
if
Lennon?
not, I'm going to
Good, okay.
first hand this to JR, and then to Grafton. And I don't think there's any other attorneys here. Well, there's one. Well, I'm sorry, of course, we talked to you.
A real life lawyer in the back.
Thanks, man, appreciate it. And I'm gonna bring an original and 3 copies, one for each of the commissioners and one for Lisa, so that she can keep it.
One for Dan, too.
You have one for me?
One for Dan, prosecutor.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. I'm probably the only one that's going to read it, so you might as well give it to me.
I'm going to blame that one. I had a hip operation on February 13, and sometimes that anesthetic tends to make you a little cloudy. So I apologize for forgetting about the most important attorney in the room. And so anyway, unless you have any further questions, I'm going to sit down and allow JR to introduce his witnesses. Okay, thank
Madam
you.
Chair? through you?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Through
Wait.
you to
One second, sir.
legal counsel here. Document for me efforts that have been made to have discussions around a JED. You say that there's been an interest on your party's part to have those discussions, but has it just been in passing? Has it been through an email? Has it been through a direct conversation?
I'll have to let Jason give you an update. I can tell you that about 2 or 3 or 4 annexations ago, a couple of years ago, I stood in the hall outside your other main meeting room, the traditional meeting room, and spoke to both the then law director and the mayor, and said, look, this arguing makes no sense. We ought to do a JED. And there was no positive response whatsoever. So from my own standpoint, and I guess I'm glad I got myself sworn in, I'll tell you, and I'll swear to God, I did make that offer and never got anything positive back. I'll let Jason fill in on what's happened in the years since I made that offer. That's the best I can do, Matt, on that one. Thanks.
Commissioner.
Oh, you're welcome to call me Al if you want to get rid of the formalities, and you let me know. I think if I could call you by your first name, it's more
We
comfortable
prefer
for me.
Commissioner, thank you.
Huh?
Commissioner.
Okay, sounds
you.
good. Thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will move on to Attorney Gretchen Holderman from Grafton next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Gretchen Holderman. I'm the law director for the Village of Grafton. This proposed annexation, we feel, will be a great positive for the Village of Grafton community. It will further Grafton's plans for future residential development, provide future revenue for a lot of Grafton's downtown businesses. And as the commissioners are aware, we've provided a resolution indicating what services Grafton is prepared to provide to the property. Those include sewer, electric, police, fire, and EMS, And I assure you, the Village of Grafton is proud to offer these services, which we believe are excellent, and we are prepared to do so. I would submit that, as noted in the resolution, the property is within rural water's exclusive service territory. If that changes or rural water is not willing or equipped to provide that water, then Grafton can do so with regard to the water as well. I would mention that in connection with Mr. Schrader's notation regarding offers of a JED, Mr. Joe Price is here from the Village of Grafton, and he can detail discussions relative to any JED possibility that have been made between Eaton Township and the Village of Grafton. We are excited about this potential annexation, and we feel that the petitioners have, in fact, satisfied all the conditions required under 709-033. This annexation petition, as a continued development by the KNG firm, will add further to the village as the other three stages of that residential development have already done so. So on behalf of the village, we're prepared to provide the services that we noted. We did agree to the terms of the maintenance of the road. The property is not annexed yet, so I guess it's not effective until the annexation would occur, if it does. But the county and the village are definitely on the same page and negotiated this pretty detailed agreement regarding the Durkee Road maintenance. So if you have any questions, I'm prepared to answer them. Otherwise, I can add to my position later.
Okay, Commissioners? Commissioner Lundy?
Thank
Okay.
Oh, yes, sir.
I have a question if I can.
Sure.
Did the road agreement, do you know if the road agreement was submitted to my office?
I believe it was actually a while back, but I'm not sure, and our clerk is not here.
Okay. If Al or one of the lawyers or Peter, if one of you have it, can you make sure that I get it? Because I was just looking through my file, I do not have it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there was a transition recently here, so I don't know where it would have been, but it's not in my file.
Sure.
I believe it's in the commissioner's file, but I'll get a copy for you.
Oh, yes, and we will as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Did you say there was an official, a city official from Grafton here?
Yes, Mr. Joe Price, the village administrator, is here, if you want to.
Okay, well, we'll move on, we're going to move on to township trustees, and then we'll get to city officials. Is that the order we want to go in, Teresa?
However you'd like to do. If he wants to go after her, that's fine.
However you wish is okay with us.
You could do city if you want to.
Okay, we'll go on to Grafton city official. Okay,
Okay.
he's the only one.
Yes, he is.
Okay,
Today, thank you.
okay, and then we'll do the trustees.
All right. Mr. Price, if you could talk about the JED and also
Okay, and just make sure you state your name for the record, sir.
Thank you. May I question him as he offers testimony?
Mr. Pettifer, Mr.
It's
Pettifer.
generally, my understanding is the general practice is that there'll be a direct and a cross, and then the commissioners can ask questions after that's done. And it's usually
That's how it's been done in the past.
Yeah, it's usually more efficient for the lawyers to get out how they want to do that.
Okay.
But I don't remember, sir, were you sworn at the beginning of the hearing?
I was, yes.
Okay, thank you. So is that okay with you?
Yes.
Mr. Hung? Okay.
Thank you.
Joe Price, Village Administrator, Village of Grafton. Commissioners, thank you for allowing me the ability to talk here today. The Village of Grafton
Well, hold on,
has...
sir. If we're going to do direct and cross, then let him do his direct, and we'll do it like a witness in a deposition. Sir, I believe that's what you're requesting, correct?
Yes.
That was what you're requesting, okay.
I would also ask the commissioners, this is the first time I've seen the brief submitted by Attorney Schrader, to give me an opportunity, and Attorney Holderman the opportunity to respond to that brief at some point as well. I haven't had the opportunity to read it. I will note that the
Mr. Petticord, so you're taking control of this part?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we'll give,
Thank
certainly
you.
give you time to respond.
And I will note as to the sixth factor, the statute doesn't say anything about it being in an ordinance about the road maintenance. It just says there's an agreement that has to be reached, and obviously that's been met, as you've heard from Attorney Holderman. Moving on, Mr. Price, could you state your name once again for the record and your position with the Village of Grafton?
Joe Price, Village Administrator.
Okay, and how long have you been in that position?
Since July 22nd, 2015.
Okay. We heard Attorney Schrader talk about the general good and the services to be provided, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about that, if that's okay. What services, if any, is the village willing and able to provide for the parcel? Again, understanding that it's going to be broken up into 55 homes. So if there's any consideration of capacity, please note whether or not the village is able to provide these services to the eventual, if this is granted, 55 parcels.
Well, to highlight some of them, sanitary sewers would be provided. Storm sewer control as well would be managed. We have the Village of Grafton public power electric system, which we have a great deal of pride in, and we find it as an affordable resource to all of the consumers that are connected to our system, and I could explain more about that later if you like. We have Grafton Water available. We do recognize that it is in the rural water district, and while rural water has had questions regarding this, we were able to remind them some of the discussions going back to 2016 and 17 regarding this specific parcel and how they would be better served to connect to us. So the Village of Grafton would buy water from rural water, and then rural water would buy it back from Grafton, because we have the size, the volume, and the pressures that rural water may not have at this site.
And I'll ask you specifically, if you could just list the services for now, and then we'll go through each individual.
Okay, well, I did provide, and I hope that the commissioners received this, I tried to create a little number chart. I've used this once before. The nice advantages that Grafton has, let's start with number one, in the sewer system. The sewer system itself has a lift station.
Well, I'll ask you those questions, I'm sorry, just if you could just identify the services. Just
Okay, well,
list them, and then we'll
the
go.
items I have listed as number one are the sanitary sewer lift station. Number two is the sanitary sewer manholes where the new properties being annexed in would have access to. I have also the extension of the Village of Grafton electric system identified there, the Village of Grafton existing water lines that are there, and of course the existing on-site stormwater control that's in place. And I've also made mention to the one manhole that we can identify that rural water has at the right-of-way on Durkee Road.
Okay, and then will fire and EMS also be, police, fire, and EMS also be provided by the village?
That's correct. In fact, we have firehouse number 2 is only a quarter mile away. Firehouse number 1 is 1.35 miles away, and the police, by the way, also are 1.35 miles away.
Okay, well, let's go through all these services to exhibit what your opinion that Grafton can provide a benefit to this parcel, if we can.
And I'll ask you to excuse me, I'm wearing a mask as long as I have, my voice is a bit dry right now and raspy, so.
Okay, as a preliminary matter, can you identify to the commissioners the area that will be annexed? I believe it's on page 3 of the documents you submitted to the commissioners.
What you show is the third page that states HOA managed development. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
That would encompass the entire neighborhood, which would be Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, which are already in existence, and Phase 4, which I believe was part of the original plan.
Is that the vacant land up top?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'll turn your attention to Exhibit 1, or page 1 of your exhibits. Let's talk about the sewers. Why does it benefit the parcel to have it annexed? Relative to the sewers?
Well, when this was originally built, and it goes back to, I think, 2006, the lift station where you see the number 1 to the left, it was installed and it has a depth of 26 feet. So
Who installed that?
that was installed by K&G, the developer at the time.
Do you have any idea what cost that was installed at?
I would not have that information.
Okay, and that's tied into Grafton?
That is tied into Grafton.
And does that have the capacity to service all 4 phases of the development?
It does, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And it was designed for that, from my understanding.
Okay.
And the unique thing about that lift station, if you look on the second page, from that lift station to wastewater treatment, by way of road, you're only going to travel 1.34 miles before it reaches Grafton's wastewater treatment plant facility.
Okay, and what is K&G's alternative relative to Lorco, and what are your perceived disadvantages of doing that? What are the challenges with Lorco service?
Well, some of the discussions that we've had, that we've heard of, is that they've been told that they would have to install a second lift station if they were to stay onto Lorco. That's just, again, information that I've been told. We do know that pre-COVID, a lift station like this would be at least $250,000. Post-COVID, it could be considerably higher. We see a lot of bids coming in right now at 20% and even higher than that.
So is that an additional cost they would have to incur while there's already a Grafton lift station that can provide that sewer service to that same area?
That's correct. And I heard you mention the $250,000 earlier. It could even be higher.
Counsel, I apologize to interrupt. When you get to a natural break or breaking point, can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me when you're ready.
After sewers, how about that?
Always appropriate.
All right, great. Yeah. So you would just discuss the lift station. There's already a lift station that can service it with Grafton. They'd have to purchase another one to go through Lorco at, you said, $250,000, just to refresh where you are. What difficulty why is a lift station needed for Lorco to service it, not Grafton?
Yeah, again, by our measurement, we see that the manhole that is at Grafton, on Durkee Road, is only 7 feet deep. So the best flow for sewage is downhill. And you're not going to be able to get enough flow, so they're going to have to run the sewers deeper, eventually come to a point where it lifts to get up to that 7 feet. And then from that point up to treatment, my guess is it's at least 27 miles before it can even reach a wastewater treatment plant facility.
So that would require a lift station?
Multiple lift stations, multiple avenues of conduit that have to take the sewage there.
We can take a break now, and then, yeah.
I apologize.
move on. Sure,
Do
no
you need a
problem.
motion, Madam Clerk, for recess?
No, we'll just make a.
This is a hearing, we're good. We can take one. I apologize, we're gonna take a few minutes.
Is there a place I can get water?
Pardon?
Water anywhere? Is it a water machine?
We'll get
Thank you.
we'll have some water.
Thank you. I'm too used to talking, JR, I'm sorry.
No. I just want to. You're the only one
In fact, it'll be,
Oh, that was there,
Morning.
Dave. Yeah, what was that?
putting in those homes. It's supposed to have consistency with this whole neighborhood. It's still gonna be 90-foot wide lots, because we have another development that's coming in, it's gonna be only 60 foot, so it's gonna be still larger lots.
So they're planning on even developing back? in
Not
the-
necessarily, this might be wetlands, so you'll see.
That's what I'm hoping. 'Cause
Okay.
this is
Okay,
one
Megan?
right
Yeah, and again, we don't have those.
I appreciate everyone's indulgence for our brief recess. I know that was pretty early, but thank you very much. Before we go back and continue direct examination, I spoke with both council, or all three council. On our break, the village will have 7 days to respond to the post-hearing brief that Mr. Schrader filed, and then Mr. Schrader will have 5 days to file a reply if necessary. I would prefer that service come to me by email, because I'm much better at email than I am at paper.
Sounds great.
If that's okay with everyone, then that's what we're going to do. Go ahead, continue, Council.
Okay, just to refresh where we're at, we had discussed the reasons that Lorco would have a difficulty providing sewer system in this area, and the benefits to the existing lift station already installed. That's hooked up to Grafton's parcel, the costs associated with that. This is in Lorco's FPA, facility planning area, though, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what would be the process for Grafton, should this annexation go through?
The process is an application to NOACA to bring it into what we refer to as our 208 district. And working with NOACA and the EPA, we would ask them to adjust the 208 district to bring that into the Village of Grafton servicing district.
And what would be your reason for that application?
The reason would be, I think, the primary concerns that NOACA would want to look at, and I'm not speaking for them, of course, or EPA, is that, who would better serve it, who would have the greater fall, who would have the shortest distance to treatment, and who would be fiscally, from a location standpoint, closest to it to service it on a regular basis.
In your opinion, who is that? What entity is that that's able
That
to?
would be the Village of Grafton.
Okay.
I think we talked about earmarks earlier. I think we would exceedingly hit all those earmarks.
Okay.
I could note that we can't make that application unless the land is annexed in. So that should be noted as well.
So it can be done now?
That we could not make that application to NOACA, and NOACA cannot actively engage in the conversation until that would happen.
Okay, I'm going to refer you to page 1 again. Let's talk about the provision of water. Can you identify the connection to Grafton Water on the page 1?
Yeah, both items marked number 4. We have an 8-inch line that is stubbed up to this development, as it has always been part of a discussion that could provide a continuation. Conversations I had with Mr. Mahoney in 2017, and they've been documented and reminded to Rural Water recently that those conversations occurred back in 2017.
And who's Mr. Mahoney?
Mr. Mahoney is the former executive director of Rural Lorraine County Water Authority.
Okay.
He was at the time. So we had discussed about Lorco, not Lorco, but Rural Water being able to meter water back to themselves at either or both of those points.
And explain how that works.
Well, we'd have to put a meter pit in each side, and here's the advantages. Rural Water does have a 4-inch line there. It's at the end of their line. It's probably at the point where they have the least amount of pressure. They'd have the least amount of volume, the least amount of push. Would they be able to adequately supply water during a fire emergency? They have even themselves said, they're not sure that they could reach that capability.
And that's through the existing pipes that Rural Water has in the ground?
That's correct. So from a better service standpoint regarding pressure, and keep in mind the Village of Grafton has on its main water line a dual pressure system, so that anytime pressures drop, if either of our elevated tanks would not provide adequate pressure, we have enough capabilities to suck all the water we can and push whatever's needed to handle any fire emergency.
And that would include the area sought to be annexed with those connections marked as, Exhibit 4, that are right there, right?
That's correct. It'd be safe to say that the Village of Grafton has no concerns when it comes to pressure and volume.
Okay, and that's important, you said, for safety reasons?
For safety reasons. It's also required if you're within a municipal limit and not in a township, the federal government requires by law that fire protection in the form of fire hydrants has to be provided at no charge.
Okay. And you had mentioned there have been discussions with rural water. Has there been any discussions regarding this parcel?
We have, and we've had recent discussions as recently as, I think, mid-December.
Okay, and is rural water agreeable, or what's the position
Well,
as far as rural water goes?
We've discussed their options. One would be to bring a new 8-inch line, which would, I can only guess at the cost, around $300,000 from Capel down to this site, to dedicate to this site. It would not be cost effective.
And that would be for rural water to service it through their pipes in the ground, correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Option 2, Rural Water and I have had a discussion that we would put in the meter pits, and then they would purchase the water back or take a deduct on our bill from them every month. Option 3 that we've discussed is that the Village of Grafton would bring it into our system. It would still be rural Lorraine County Water Authority's district, but we would have a shared revenue agreement on the water being distributed.
Okay, and is it your understanding that rural water is willing to work something out with regard to this parcel?
Well, I'm very happy to say that after years of conflict the village had with rural water, we've had a great working relationship. I was able to develop a relationship with Mr. Mahoney. I have one with Mr. Waldecker as well.
Okay. So it's your position that the pipes in the ground for Grafton provide superior water service than what's currently in place for rural water available through the township?
Unquestionably.
Okay. Okay, so we've talked about sewers and water. Let's talk about electric. Number 3 on Exhibit 1, can you identify the electric hookups through Grafton Electric?
Yes, we have underground power already at site, located at both number 4s. We have also recently taken out a bid to provide another line that would come down Elm Street to Durkee for an improvement in the system. It would change it from a 4 kV system to a 12 kV.
Okay, so what number, if it's accurate, did you identify as the connections to Grafton Electric, the existing connection?
Well, we've got that noted as number 3.
Okay, great.
Those are existing now, and there's 3 of them located. One is at Durkee Road, Durkee and Elm Street where they join, and then one at the end of Limerick, and the other end, ironically, the other end of Limerick, which is a large U street.
Okay, and be sufficient to service Phase 4?
They would,
All 55 homes?
all 55 homes. The Village of Grafton, it was mentioned earlier, is a member of American Municipal Power. We're a public power provider. We're proud of that. And I would also like to say that the village has a legal right to service up to 50% of its load outside the village. We don't do that unless people ask for it. We don't go trying to take customers away from rural electric. We don't try to take customers away from First Energy.
And why do you otherwise, besides the connections that are already existing for Grafton, why do you feel Grafton can provide superior electric service compared to what's otherwise available?
Well, I live in Cuyahoga County, so forgive me for that, Commissioners, but I tell people as a legislator in Cuyahoga County, when I call First Energy to have a street light changed, you can wait 9 months. In Grafton, you're probably going to get it fixed within 24 hours. That's how fast we'll do it. We also have been very proactive in upgrading. We replace poles and transformers on a regular basis. You rarely see something that looks anything of age in the Village of Grafton. We take extreme pride in, number 1, safety, number 2, maintaining our system. We're in the process, we've already had funded an improvement to our main substation. That'll happen this year, $3.7 million improvement to that facility, and all of this to continue to give high reliability of service and sustain the long-term vision of the village in regards to growth of its electric system. Additionally, whether the commissioners are aware of it or not, we are home to the largest solar facility in Northeast Ohio that is connected to a public power system.
And how is that a benefit to your customers and would be to these 55 homes?
It was a unique project because it was designed to in no way bring additional revenues back into the village. It was designed to save all of its customers money. So the savings go directly to the customers, including the Village of Grafton, which is the third largest user of power in the community. So by doing that, the effect just in the short period of time we've already had, 2019, this very small amount that we had in 2019, the full year of 2020, we've been able to take what is commonly referred to as the power cost adjustment that most residential consumers were paying $24, $25, $26, $27, $28 a month. It's been down to zero. And that's just the first phase that they're going to see. We're trying to figure out now how we can create a credit to each of those customers, because again, this program was designed to save money. It will save these 50-plus homes money by being on the Village of Grafton public power system.
Including this 55 homes?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we tout the same thing on our sanitary sewer, of having low rates.
Yeah, let's talk about that briefly. I forgot to talk about that. What are your tap-in fees relative to Lorco
Our tap-in fees,
for sewer?
our tap-in fees are $1,800.
Okay.
Lorco's, I believe, is $8,000. He's here today. He can testify to that if I'm wrong.
Okay, so there's a significant saving to each home as far as the tap-in fee goes.
That would be correct.
How about the rates, sewer?
I'm not familiar with Lorco's rate, but we base ours on 55% of the water usage, which still, provides, like I said, a very affordable rate. As again, someone that lives in Cuyahoga County, I pay 3 times what Grafton residents pay.
Okay, so now we've talked as far as the services to be provided and the benefit to the parcel about sewers, water, electric. Let's talk about police. Do you think Grafton can provide a benefit in policing to that parcel, and if so, why?
Well, Grafton's unique in the fact that it has its own full-time police department, but we also see a constant presence of Metro Parks Police and the Sheriff's Department. But again, the Metro Parks are going to be solely on the main roads. You're going to see the Sheriff Department solely on the main roads. The Village of Grafton running 3 shifts, full-time police department. The one thing we have always are highly complimented on is that the residents that we serve see the police presence in their streets each and every day on each and every shift.
As far as fire and EMS, is there a reason why Grafton provision of fire and EMS would benefit this parcel particularly?
Well, we talked about the short distance earlier. I briefly mentioned that firehouse number 2 is a quarter miles away. The firehouse number 1 is 1.35 miles away, and we hope to go to the taxpayers in the near future to, the plan is through growth to bring on a full-time fire department.
Now, there was some talk also about the surrounding half mile. I know sometimes with annexation, there's a fear that other areas would be annexed into the village, that it's some, kind of this thing that won't stop growing. Would you ever advise annexation in any areas where there wasn't the unanimous desire by all affected parcel owners to come into Grafton?
I never have. I was always under the belief that the parcel owners would have to be willing participants. I've been told otherwise, but I've never even considered that.
So it's your position that someone will want to come into the village in order to be annexed in, correct?
Yes, we receive inquiries, and it's not a top secret. There are people requesting conditions as what it would take to be annexed in if, in fact, it was to their benefit, the village's benefit. And we have those fair, honest discussions with them. Sometimes it may not be to their benefit.
All right, so we've gone through the services, we've talked about kind of what some of the problems Mr. Schrader talked about as far as the surrounding half a mile. Let's talk to me about this shed business that was mentioned earlier. Were there discussions with Grafton? What were they?
We have always been open to JED districts. In fact, I think we were the ones that may have mentioned a possible JED district at another time, but I want to be careful because I want to honor what was discussed in confidentiality. But a JED district, Joint Economic Development District, highly beneficial to both communities in a commercial district. There's going to be no benefit in a residential district. 97% of the people in the village work outside the village. If they work here at this building, they're going to pay a higher tax rate. In the Village of Grafton, which is only 1.5%, gives 100% reciprocity. They're not going to see any of that tax back, and neither will a JED district pay any of that back to the shared parties. The real estate property taxes, we pray that we have enough to plow the streets, salt the streets, pay the hourly wage, and take care of the equipment. So it's not a huge tax incentive to bring in residential property. We're trying to bring in these residential people that'll be participating in community and participating in the success of a community, including supporting local businesses and restaurants.
All right, well, we've gone over the services, we've gone over, I think, all the factors in Section 5 of the statute. If I may, Commissioners, I would like to turn the witness over to Attorney Holderman at this point. Do you have any questions?
I don't think so. I think that,
Gretchen.
Need to come up to the
you
podium,
have to-
please.
You have to come up.
If you want to make a statement other than no, come on up and tell us.
No, okay. Just wanted to give her the opportunity. But I have nothing more at this time for Mr. Price.
Counsel?
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Price. I'm Attorney Al Schrader, and I know we've met before in
We have.
various annexation matters. When you talked about a JED, you concentrated on the generation of additional tax revenues. Have you ever looked at what benefits a JED provides in terms of providing a structure of cooperation between, let's start with the village and the township of Eaton?
Counselor, the Village of Grafton has always been collaborative, and that will be our stand.
Except you don't want to have a JED.
We were the ones that mentioned to you about going down to 82 and 57, all the way over to Island Road and south. Were we not the ones that mentioned that to you?
I'm the one asking the questions with all respect. What I'm asking is, have you looked at the potential of a JED with regard to encouraging and allowing cooperation between the township and the village?
The village has repeatedly reached out to Eaton Township to open up the doors of conversation and has been rejected every time. If you'd like me to elaborate, I will.
No, but I would like you to tell me that when Eaton Township offered to do a JED, was it Eaton Township that rejected their own offer, or was it the Village of Grafton that rejected the offer to do a JED?
Can you remind me when you offered a JED?
It's been about 3 years ago, I think, that I did. I'm not sure you were there, but Mayor DiVincenzo was.
I can't answer any question if I was not there, but I don't recall a conversation other than us having conversations regarding to what I had expanded upon in regards to a JED. So to be clear, yes, we are interested in doing a JED, and we've had the same conversations with Eaton Township as well. I'm sorry, Grafton Township, forgive me.
And are you aware that through a JED, you could also include, like, for example, the county commissioners in a JED?
That would be a part of the process, as would a TIF, yes.
Okay.
I'm familiar with JED, sir.
Good. So you also would be familiar that through a JED, we could perhaps do some cooperative agreements, if we had a JED, with those other water, sewer, and electric providers.
Is that a possibility? I'm sure that it is a possibility. The Village of Grafton being the entity that would service, for instance, sanitary sewers, we would have to consider any agreement in that regards, and we still do, with or without a JED. We have records of that. We have 7 different areas we serve outside the village without a JED.
Oh, great. And without annexation?
Without annexation,
Great.
yes.
Why didn't you offer that to the gentleman who owns KNG that wants to annex this land apparently so that he can get access to your sewer system so he doesn't have to build another pump station?
It isn't me that's telling him he has to build another pump station. This has been discussions that I can relate back to, going back to 2006, long before Joe Price was ever there.
Okay, let me phrase it when Joe Price was there and the gentleman from KNG came and talked to you about sewer service, and did you offer him sewer service without annexing?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, on sewer, that's actually, the area proposed to when it be annexed is not in your sewer service area, right?
It is not.
Okay. And you described the potential change of sewer service areas as a conversation. Made it sound like we sit down over coffee and make the decision. It's actually a process, isn't it? It involves a hearing before NEFCO?
I believe I said to the commissioners, we could not make application to Lorco until the property was annexed in.
Okay.
It wasn't a conversation, it was a process, an application.
What you said, the conversation couldn't begin. The point is, there's a little more to it in the conversation with NEFCO, isn't there?
There's been conversations. I never said there could not be a conversation. We've had conversations.
Let me ask it this way. For there to be a change in the sewer district, there would have to be a hearing before NEFCO, correct?
Yes.
And you would tell them why you want the change, and Lorco, the sewer provider, would tell you why they don't want the change, right?
Yes.
Then a decision has to be made, correct?
That is correct.
Somewhat similar probably to the hearing we're having here today on this annexation, right?
I would hope so, yes.
And the result would be uncertain, isn't it?
There is always an uncertainty when you're having a hearing and having other people make decisions, is there not?
Sure, either one of you could lose.
Sure. Well, I wouldn't consider it lose. I would hope the residents, the people we're serving would benefit.
But if you annexed it and you didn't get the change in the sewer district, Lorco would still have to serve it, right?
They would be a consideration if the development was to move forward.
And all I'm doing, by the way, is going over the list in your ordinance of services you're going to provide. You also said you'd provide electric service, although that's not within your electric service area, correct?
What is an electric service area, the question might be. The term is vague. For instance, we have First Energy.
Let me clarify it for you.
Okay.
Right now, your electric service is called, I believe, Village of Grafton Power and Light. Is that correct?
Grafton Village Power and Light.
Grafton Village Power and Light,
Yes,
great.
sir.
And that's affiliated with American Municipal Power, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And the area we're talking about now, the KNG property that you're here advocating for annexation, is now served by the Rural Electric Cooperative, right?
I'm not aware whether it's them or Ohio Edison or a combination of both. Because
thought you
both
had
would
some
have the right to serve that area, I believe.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard you say that you had some discussions with the electric folks.
With my electric folks.
No, with the rural electric folks.
No, you're mistaken. I didn't say that.
Okay. The point of that, though, was to make you understand what the difference is in the service areas. Are we on the same page now?
Correct.
Okay. Prior to this annexation hearing, but at the time, K&G was interested in annexing. And at the time you prepared this ordinance, where you said Grafton would provide the electric, did you talk to anybody from Rural Electric Cooperative?
I have not.
Thank you. And there again, that doesn't automatically change the minute they annex, if it's approved, does it?
It would be possibly dependent upon the other entities you're mentioning. For instance, do they have the capabilities, the infrastructure to push the power that's needed to feed 50-plus more homes? I don't know that is to be the case. I can only speak on the Village of Grafton.
Is there a process to change from Rural Electric Cooperative to Grafton Power and Light?
Is there a process? Well, like I said earlier, we can serve legally up to 50% of the people outside our incorporated limits. However, those people then can choose. They could switch from Grafton to First Energy to Rural Electric at will at times.
Okay. And by the way, you did say you were able to serve up to 50% of your capacity outside the village. You ever offer that to K&G before they sought to annex?
I don't think we've had that offer, but with
Okay,
that
that's what I thought.
decision.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, on police, how many cruisers do you have in the village police department?
Oh, we have 6 right now, I believe,
Okay. And how many full-time policemen?
including the chief 5,
Okay.
about 16 part-time.
And do you have any idea how many full-time sworn deputies and certified deputies the Lorraine County Sheriff has?
No, sir.
Yet you think the police service would be improved by going to the village, by being annexed?
From my personal experience of seeing our cruisers throughout the village on a daily basis, yes, sir, I do.
Okay. How about fire? How many full-time fire personnel do you have?
None.
And are your fire stations staffed 24 hours per day?
They are not.
That same is true of EMS as well, correct?
That is correct. We also have a backup service in regards to EMS when needed.
Well, everybody has a backup service, right?
Sure.
It's called mutual aid.
Absolutely. and-
Okay,
and
fair enough.
We're grateful for that as well.
Sure. And then I heard you say you'd had some discussions with, and I'm sorry, I just saw this for the first time today. My client actually gave me this. I'm going to mark something as Township's Exhibit A. I don't have any extra copies. I will tell you that it's a letter from Matthew A. Dooley dated January 13, 2021, with a copy to J.R. White, so I assume J.R. has this somewhere. I'm going to, if I might approach, let me put the mask on. I'm going to ask you to identify this for the record. Now, I'm sure you've testified before, but if you haven't, all I want you to do is tell me what it is,
Sure.
okay?
To identify it, it is a letter from O'Toole, McLaughlin, Dooley, sorry if I mispronounce it, Pepora, and it is addressed to multiple parties, the Mayor of Grafton, Mayor David DiVincenzo, Joe Price Administrator, Village of Grafton. And it says, "Dear Misters and Misters DiVincenzo and Price." And it's a letter that I did receive, and it was followed up with communications with all of the parties you see listed here.
Okay. And in that letter, they indicated that this is their service area, correct?
Yes.
And they would sue you if you changed it?
Yes.
Okay. And the price it was directed to was you, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and my conversation with Mr. Dooley notified him of the previous conversations going back to 2017, which opened up a sense of collaboration between the parties, because he was not aware of the prior communications
I
regarding
think the
this very
question was,
matter.
did you get the letter, or was it
I did,
addressed?
sir, yes.
Okay. You got a very good attorney. He can ask you some more questions if he feels like he needs to. I don't need the Bible. I just want to answer to my question with all respect. Any decision reached with regard to who's going to provide that service?
There's no question as to regards to whose district it's in, but
Right,
it's
it's
still
in their
open.
district.
No, it's in their district,
Right.
yes.
The question was, you said there were a lot of conversations. Assuming the annexation is approved, did you reach any decision as to how you're going to serve that area?
We agreed it would be presumptive of us to have an agreement when the property is not within the village. So we won't try to represent an agreement that we don't have an authority in that district at that point.
So there's no contingent agreement as to how that area to be annexed is going to be served?
No, I gave the three ways it could be served.
Oh, we heard that.
Yes.
But those were three ideas, but there's not even contingent upon annexation, this is how we'll do it.
They weren't ideas, there were three possibilities. One of the three would have to happen.
Okay, but as we stand here today, if it's annexed, there's no agreement, even one conditioned on annexation as to how that area will be served with that service.
The great news is you've got providers that could both serve this area. Water will be provided to these properties, one way or the other.
I got several women that could have been my wife, but I had to choose one of them.
And the right choice will be made on this as well, because.
But
the
it hasn't
Village of
been
Grafton
made,
will-
but it hasn't been made yet, is that right?
We don't have the authority to enter into an agreement with that at this point, Mr. Schrader.
The question was, I guess I've beaten that horse about far enough. There's no agreement, I think is pretty obvious. Thank you very much. That's all
Thank you, sir.
the questions I have at this point for you.
Hold on a second. Mr. Schrader, do you have an exhibit that you want to attach and make an exhibit to the hearing? Okay, do you,
And then at a break sometime, we'll find a copy machine and get some copies of that.
can I see it first?
Schrader, would you
and
like
then we'll
this
do
one
that?
Let me put,
Here, I'm okay.
thanks. I have two once, but I think two of them to make it official, so.
Do you plan on using that exhibit in your redirect?
I don't need to actually review the text of it. You can take it.
I just want to take a look at it real quickly before we go to redirect, and then you can have it back. Just give me 1 second, and then you can give it back to the podium.
Still not clear which service is that, Which service? It wasn't clear which service.
Rural Lorraine County Water Authority.
Rural water.
Yeah. You want to break? Would it be helpful to you guys to have this? We could break and get a copy.
I'm good.
Whoever wants to come and get it.
Can I approach for one moment?
Sure.
My name is Ryan Gambala.
And go to the mic.
wait.
No,
Hold
no,
the mic
no.
and then start.
My name's Ryan Gambala. I'm an attorney. I represent Lorco. We've heard some discussion today about NOACA and facility planning areas and whose territory this is. And I have an objection based on those grounds. It's something that I can present probably with limited, if any, cross-examination of Mr. Price. It's more a legal issue than it is factual. I don't know when would be the appropriate time for me to voice that objection, but I wanted to at least get in front of you here while we had a moment
Okay,
before it passed.
let me do this, and I don't want to break this up too much. You finish your redirect, we'll pass the witness, and then you and I can talk on the side with counsel, and we'll figure out when the right time is for you to come in and say what you need to say.
That works for me,
Is that
Mr.
fair enough?
Petticord. Thank you.
Okay, please proceed.
Mayor, can I say something? If we could, please, if we're within 3 feet of another person, are approaching another person or you're not at the podium, can you make sure you have your mask on, please? Thank you.
I tried to hook it, Commissioner, I missed with my finger, so that's my fault.
No, no, it wasn't.
Okay. Proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Price, you've been involved with annexations before, obviously, in your position as village administrator, correct?
Yes.
Are the areas to be annexed often in other service areas, facility planning areas, and the like?
Almost always.
Okay,
Not always, but almost always.
almost always. And so do these approvals need to be gained in those circumstances?
I don't know of one where it has not.
Okay, so in fact, almost none of the annexations that you've experienced could have gone forward if agreements had to have been in place beforehand, isn't that right?
My understanding is that, yes.
Okay, so this is standard practice. This is nothing unusual, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there was some discussion about police, and certainly, I think we could both agree we have all the respect in the world for the Lorraine County Sheriff's Department, right? They provide mutual aid to Grafton, and they're just, I live in Carlisle, they're my police department. What's the area of service that the sheriff has to cover in their duties compared to Grafton? Do you know, or do you have any idea?
Countywide, I would have to imagine if we went on a per person per capita, the Village of Grafton would be fairly well covered.
And the sheriffs have, would you agree that the sheriffs have a much larger area to cover?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so with absolutely every respect in the world to the department, it's your position that the distance from the station is a benefit, and having a fully staffed all the time police department being right there is a benefit to this parcel, regardless of the great work that the Lorraine County Sheriff's.
That along with their presence there, when there's an emergency, when there was an active shooter in Grafton a year ago, the Sheriff's Department was there, the FBI was there, the Metro Parks were there. Look, this is what we're about. We're here to serve and protect.
Let's turn quickly to the letter from Mr. Dooley. You received that letter. I know you don't have it in front of you, but we both read it. Can you paraphrase kind of what was said in that letter?
It referenced back to the previous court decision back in the early 2000s where there was litigation between the village and rural water over another development. And the findings of that, and basically reiterating that this is our servicing district and that we have no claims to it. And we never stated we had claims to it. We just stated that we have the ability to provide water to it.
And what did you do in response to that letter, I think?
I reached out to Mr. Waldecker, had a personal.
Who's that?
He's the current executive director to Lorraine County Rural Water Authority.
Okay, so what was your conversation with the executive director of rural water?
Just to, give an example, we have a pretty casual conversation. His first name is Joe, I'm Joe, and we both agreed to be kind to each other's Joe. So we have a great relationship. We speak often. I assured to him, because he had gotten a red flag from someone about a previous annexation discussion, and I think some of it was miscommunication. So after talking to Joe, I even reached out personally to Mr. Dooley, who returned my phone call, and we had a very cordial and collaborative conversation.
Okay, so do you believe that threat for litigation and all that stuff is still out there for rural water?
No, we've accepted what he said fully, so why would there be, unless he's going to sue us for agreeing with him, I don't know.
Okay, great. And so you said you discussed about 3 options with rural water, but no consensus was reached. Was there a consensus to agree to make an agreement of some sort with regard to this?
Absolutely. Mr. Waldecker and I had that conversation in regards to those options that I shared with the commission here.
And was it agreed that one of those options would be selected?
I don't know of a fourth one, but I would imagine one of the 3 would have to happen, yes.
Okay. I don't have anything further for this witness. Thank you.
Limited recross, hopefully.
Well, yes. It scares me when you use words like "I would imagine one of the 3 would have to happen." what JR asked you was there an agreement that you would agree on some method of serving the area?
My position was to listen to Mr. Waldecker and his recommendations. In fact, I did not know about the possibility of a shared revenue agreement. He discussed it in regards to one they have at Chestnut Commons. And I said, yeah, the village would be open to that discussion, yes.
The question was, did you agree on some method of serving the area?
We have no agreement.
Okay, that's the point. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
You good? With the commissioner's indulgence, I'd like to have a short sidebar with council to see when it's appropriate to bring in. Is that okay with you? Figure when it's appropriate to bring
Yes,
up a new.
yes, thank you.
Pardon? In an hour. 5 minutes.
You taking a break?
We can talk about-
Okay.
Yes, 5 minutes.
Am I done?
Teresa, can you do me a favor?
Dan, before we go, we looking at a certain time, 20 days, because you gave them 12 and 7?
Oh, that's on you. We try to schedule a meeting.
Like, mine sounds like the coins dropping.
We're live and unmuted.
All right, Prosecutor Petticord.
Yes. We're gonna start with a speaking objection, I believe, on behalf of Lorco. And then we'll proceed with the next witness.
We're actually at number 7.
State your name and who you represent for the record, please.
Certainly. Ryan Gambala, attorney with O'Toole, McLaughlin, Dooley, and Pecora, Sheffield Village, Ohio, here on behalf of Lorco. With me today is Eugene Toy, executive director of Lorco. As Prosecutor Petticord indicated, we're here to make an objection. You've heard reference to it both in the opening statements today and in the direct and cross-examination from Mr. Price. There seems to be no dispute as between the township, the village, and certainly not Lorco, that the territory in question is part of the Lorco facility planning area. That means that it's our territory to provide sewer. And so the nature of our objection is narrow. It's related solely sewer service in the affected territory. Because this is in our facility planning area, along with other unincorporated territories throughout Lorain County, we certainly have an objection to somebody else coming in and providing sewer service within our territory. But more importantly, there's a process. There was also reference to that this morning, that you would have to go before NOACA to get an amendment to the designated facility planning area, where we would also make an objection because this is our territory to provide sewer service. And so from Lorco's perspective, we've got a little bit of a cart before the horse situation here because NOACA hasn't amended the facility planning area. This is our territory. I understand from the resolution from the Village of Grafton and so forth that they seek to provide sewer service to the annexed territory should the petition be granted. We would object to that based on the notion that it is our territory, and we have, it's Lorco's position and understanding that the application can be made to NOACA in advance of annexation. And in fact, since that would be a factor to consider when a municipality is trying to decide whether they want to annex territory or not, it would seem logical. And so that's the nature of our objection.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, if I could. First off, I just felt it was important to have some clarification. My understanding is that and I know it's probably because of, where maybe someone lives or they practice, but NEFCO, just for the record, is not involved in the decision-making process. That's the Northeast Ohio 4-county Ohio. It's a regional planning and development organization similar to NOACA, but it services Summit, Stark, Wayne, and Portage counties, I believe. So I just wanted that for clarification in the record. It's an easy mistake to make because a lot of folks don't know these service areas and who does the work. As it relates to NOACA, and, I guess my understanding has always been that, that a lot of the municipal laws apply to the villages as well, and that when you get into a situation where a property is annexed, that if that area then is able to provide the services, that then would become the service area. So I'm not aware of, I'm just basing it upon other meetings I've been in WAC over the years. I'm not saying that that's the direction it's going to go or any final decisions, and everybody gets to obviously argue their position on that, but at least what my experience had been to date was that if someone was already able to provide service in that area, because I think we had some areas that were in, I think it was like in the Worcester area and things like that, where cases like this took place, and it seemed like that automatically it just transferred then to that municipality or that village, since they already were a service provider. That's just what I've experienced. I'm not taking any position on the matter.
I can, I guess, maybe respond to that.
Okay.
Just,
If you want to address it, go ahead.
yeah, just with my own experience has been otherwise, respectfully, Commissioner Lundy, that where there's a dispute as between the designated management agency in the current facility planning area, and that who seeks to amend, that NOACA generally is looking for unanimity amongst the parties, and so perhaps in circumstances where everybody agrees to a way certain territory would be parceled up, NOACA approves a change in the facility planning area. But where there are objections, I see that happening with significantly less frequency, and I know here, besides Lorco's objection, we've already, we've heard from Mr. Schrader on behalf of the township, and I imagine Avon Lake Regional Water would have an objection as well. So just, I guess, kind of in response.
Any other questions for the board for?
No, I guess just for clarification, because I know that Avon Lake works in conjunction with Lorco.
Yes.
So are you also here representing Avon Lake, or are you here primarily representing?
I'm here primarily on behalf of Lorco, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness?
Thank you, Commissioners. I would like to briefly call Kevin Flanagan, member of K&G. Could you state your name?
Kevin J. Flanagan with K&G.
And you're a member of K&G?
Yes.
And are you the developer of Fiddler's Green?
Yes, I am.
I'm just going to cut right to it so we don't waste a lot of time on preliminary stuff. When did the development start? When did you start construction?
It would have started around, planning and everything would have started around 2004, 2005, and 2006.
Okay, and was there a point in time that you installed a lift station to service the development?
We installed a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind lift station at that point in time, very expensive, state-of-the-art, as I said, for the development and future development as we did that in phases. Yes.
And within Fiddler's Green?
Within Fiddler's Green, yes.
And what sewer system is that hooked to?
That's tied to the Village of Grafton.
Okay. Would that also have the capacity to service Phase 4?
It would, it has capacity to service a lot more than what it's handling right now,
Okay.
significantly more.
And the whole area that's proposed to be annexed would be serviced by this lift station?
Yes.
Do you remember how much money K&G paid around for?
At that time, it was around $275,000 just for the lift station.
Were there
Does
other
that count?
costs associated with it?
Pardon?
Were there other costs associated
Well,
with
again,
it?
when you tie in and you're going 26 feet down, there's a total, I mean, that would include some of the ancillary costs as well, yes.
All right, so that's already hooked up, and your understanding is that has the ability to service the whole area?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea what a new lift station would cost for Lorco to service it?
That was 15 years ago, and it was $275,000 plus or minus. My guess is you're looking at, again, for something that magnitude, and if we have to go that deep, which we most likely will, you're looking at, again, probably well into upper 300,000, if not more, 400,000.
Okay. Would that cause you to abandon Phase 4 of this project?
We would certainly have to take a look at that, and it would make it very cost prohibitive.
I don't have anything further from Mr. Flanagan.
Cross. Cross.
Hi, Mr. Flanagan. Did the village ever offer to provide electric without annexation?
We have not really talked, that's all stuff that would come as part of the planning process, depending on how we were to develop the property. Right now, our first phase, 1, 2, and 3, has been handled by the Village of Grafton, and they've done a really good job with it.
I guess I'm trying to get at is, what are we really talking about here? Do you have any problem with the township's provision of police service to the area through the sheriff?
Right now, for that particular area, we haven't needed really it's just a farm field right now.
Okay. Have you had any problem with the township's provision of fire and EMS service to the area?
Again, it's farm field, so there's been no need.
Okay. How about water service to the area?
Farm field, been no need.
Okay. So is it fair to say the main reason you're seeking annexation is because of the sewer service?
I think now when you're looking at it, I think you've got a number of things working. You've got the sewer service. I think the water service is going to be a big issue, and I think one of the 3 solutions that was laid out by Mr. Price could work very well. I think, again, from a water standpoint, as we heard, you've got only a 4-inch line coming to that area, whereas there's an 8-inch line coming out of Grafton to service that area, which makes a significant difference when it comes to fire service and fighting a potential fire.
Okay. Have you ever approached the water provider in the township?
I have worked quite a bit with Rural Lorraine County Water Authority over the years through the Village of Grafton.
Okay. Have you ever approached Lorraine County Rural Water just with regard to the area we're talking about that you want to annex?
At this point in time, until we're ready to finalize plans and stuff, it's not been necessary. It's kind of cart before the horse.
So you don't know whether they could provide service to the area that would meet the requirement of the water pressure and so on?
I have not had that told directly to me, no.
Okay. And conversely, you don't know that they couldn't provide the service, fair enough?
Again, it would be a possibility. Everything's possible, everything's possible. So until we make the final plans, determination on the plans, no.
Okay. I don't mean to jump around, but when did you purchase, and I'm talking now just about the area that we're talking about here today, when did you purchase that?
It would have, I believe, have been the end of 2019.
Okay. So that was a few years after you put in that lift station.
That was all part of a parcel. Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all part of a farm that I had dealt with the Kinter family and Mrs. Logar on, and that we had been taking it in stages. So it was all part of the same parcel of property.
But you bought it in stages?
I purchased it in stages. The last stage, actually, she was going to go for the annexation, but she was in ill health with pancreatic cancer.
So you buy this property in 2019, but the planning had, from the beginning, been to develop this into all four parcels, including the one that we're talking about annexing here today.
That was the thought process.
Did you ever talk to the township about, there's various government programs that allow for assistance to developers. Tax increment financing is one of them. Did you ever talk to Eaton Township about a TIF?
No, I did not.
Okay. Such a thing might have helped with the cost of a lift station if it was necessary, would it not?
Anything's possible.
Right, I think that's all I have for this particular witness. Thank you, Mr. Flanagan.
Thank you.
I did want to add just something very briefly. If we could go back, I think I'm the one that was using NEFCO, and I apologize for that. Obviously, that should be changed to NOACA, but it's the same thing. Not the same thing, but, same difference. It's just a different group that does the same doggone thing in a different area. But thank you for pointing it out. Thanks.
Redirect?
Just very briefly. Mr. Flanagan, do you believe there's benefit to your development to have them all in one municipality as opposed to split between a township and a municipality and a village?
I think the development itself is a benefit to the entire area, and yes, I think there's some benefit. Definitely think there's some good benefit to having it all tied together as one development.
Okay. And do you have any reason to doubt Mr. Price's expertise as far as his discussions about water pressure and lift stations and whatnot?
No, as a matter of fact, in dealing with Mr. Price, I think it's been very good, and obviously I've worked with him within the Village of Grafton, and it's been very beneficial and helpful. And he is very knowledgeable.
And importantly, despite anything else that's been said, you want this parcel to be annexed into Grafton on behalf of K&G, correct?
Yes.
It's your desire.
At this point in time, yeah.
Okay.
I understand also the township's desires, and I'm hoping to have another development in Eaton Township that'll stay in Eaton Township, and there won't be any annexation involved.
And in fact, you have business interests in Eaton right now, don't you?
Correct.
So it's not personal against Eaton?
Oh, absolutely not. I understand their position.
Okay. No further for Mr. Flanagan. Thank you, Commissioner.
Is there anything from the board for this witness?
If I could, yeah. I'm just sitting here, I guess I have a weird sense of humor. Mr. Flanagan's paying good money to pay for counsel today, then he has to be questioned as well by his own counsel. But nonetheless, I wanted to ask a question about this document here, and maybe this question gets directed to Mr. Whitey and Mr. Flanagan. I'm just want to make sure I understand it properly. The one there's several times in here, the document's dated 1/12/20/21, and I guess I'm just trying to figure out if it was originally signed 1/12/20 and then acknowledged on 21. I don't know if.
May I see it?
You describe it for him, Commissioner Lundy, so he can
Sure,
look at
yeah.
it.
Well, it would be first the actual petition for the regular annexation, because I know Mr. Flanagan's signature is there too, and Mr. White's signature, but it shows date of 1/12/20/21. And then later, there's correspondence Mr. White, from your firm that's dated January 29th, 2021. But then there's a signature page there that's showing 1/12/20 dash, not dash, /21. I'm just trying to figure out if the document was originally signed on the 12th of January in 20, and then acknowledged in 21.
May I approach and
Sure.
just take?
I think I've got it on,
Hang on here.
had it on my iPad and I lost
I
it.
think this looks like something that happens to all of us when the year changes.
If you've got a piece of paper, show it to
Yeah,
us.
right here. It looks like everything that we all do when we go to a new year, right here.
Mr. Flanagan can speak to that, yeah.
Show it to him and ask him.
Here, go ahead. You want to take it?
Thank you.
That's what I saw.
I think you can testify as to what day you signed it.
Oh, yeah. Number one, I know January 12th because that's my wedding anniversary.
That's good.
So I can verify that after 47 years. So, yeah, again, that would have been my way of, yeah, that's definitely 2021.
2021, okay. Okay, because I noticed it was, in another one of the documents here as well, too.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and there's, you had the one dated on the 29th, but then there was the,
Oh, that's just an exhibit to
Exhibit,
the,
okay.
to the letter,
Okay,
yeah. That- I
okay.
have to include a copy of the petition,
okay,
and so that's the same document, essentially, Commissioner.
okay. So, Mr. Flanagan, that's your designation of the date?
Yeah,
Okay. I just
yes.
wanted to make sure you were
Yeah.
aware of it if it was
Yep,
updated.
thanks.
So, okay, thank you, sir.
Hold on a second. Anything else from the board? Is there any objection to Counsel for Lorco asking questions of this witness?
No. No.
Is that okay with the board?
Yeah, I'm fine, as long as it's not argumentative, I'm good.
I will be brief.
Brief is good.
Good morning, Mr. Flanagan. I'm Ryan Gambala, legal
How are you?
counsel for Lorco. I have just a couple of questions for
Sure.
you about the cost of the lift station. Do you recall having discussions with Lorco about the cost of an additional lift station for the Fiddler's Green subdivision?
Not specifically, no. We've talked about a lift station and the need for a lift station, and my engineers have talked about it.
And that's Chris Howard, correct?
Chris Howard with Bramhall Engineering.
And do you remember, as part of those conversations, Lorco offering either to install the lift station themselves or to help defray the cost of the lift station to you by using some of the tap fees to help defray that cost to you?
Absolutely not.
Right. Are you aware of whether Mr. Howard had those conversations with Lorco?
I would say, to my understanding, no.
And if Lorco were willing to either install the lift station or help defray the cost of the lift station to you through some of the tap fee revenue, would that change your opinion about whether you want this annexation to go forward?
I don't think so at this time. I think the direction of tying into Grafton with everything else makes the most sense, both from a safety and just an overall cost standpoint. And this is something new. I mean, that has not been presented before.
Would it surprise you to learn that it's written in a June 2018 email to Chris Howard, your engineer?
If I didn't see it, I guess so.
Does he regularly communicate with you when those kind of offers are made on these types of projects, Mr.
With
Flanagan?
no, I'm not, because of most of the, again, I don't see how that would benefit, because most I've ever heard is that, well, no, I would not. I mean, I would be surprised, and no, I did not see that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I heard earlier that it was cost prohibitive for Lorco because it was outside, it was so far. I heard that. And, I mean, I know how, Mr. Flanagan's businesses are. I mean, if it's cost prohibitive, if I was working for Mr. Flanagan and I saw that was a cost $8,000 to $10,000 tap-in, is what I heard earlier, I could be wrong. I don't think I would forward it on to Mr.
My
Flanagan.
understanding it was an $8,000 tap-in, plus or minus.
But I don't know if I was correct when I heard that the distance was an issue. I'm talking about what I heard earlier in the testimony.
Sure. I mean, look, in terms of the distance, I think that what we heard earlier was that you'd need a whole series of lift stations, but in actuality, those lift stations already exist. We're talking about one additional lift station.
In that area?
Yeah, in the Phase 4 area.
Right, in which he already paid for one.
We've already paid for one that can handle the area.
Right.
There would at least, because the engineers have not finalized, but there would need at least one, and my understanding, it could possibly be two, as we go back farther in the development.
But are we talking about the one that's already existing? Or is that what we're talking?
No, it would be two in the new area, but one for sure. I can't speak to the second one at this point in time, other than it's a possibility.
Okay.
So that would end up three then in that area, but at least two. And as we said, the depth of Lorco at that point is only 7 to 10 feet. And for them to go back, however far it is, and plus they'd have to go under a creek, possibly two, to go back farther. Whereas we would come in from the village at two different points, not have to, and it just makes it so much simpler.
Didn't you start this last year and got thrown out on a technicality or something, or didn't finish?
Yes.
Okay. Timing's everything in development,
Anything further from the board?
not for me.
Thank you.
Well, I guess Commissioner Lundy had
Yeah.
something.
Oh, did
Well,
you?
no,
I'm
no,
sorry,
no,
I
if
didn't see it.
No, if I could, just for the matter of correction, I mean, the reason that things were put on hold last year was the need for the 3 hearings. Is that what you're
Yeah,
referencing?
I believe, and the attorneys here can tell us better, but I believe this was originally filed as an emergency petition, and there was an issue with the number of hearings, the number of
Right.
notice hearings that were done.
Yeah,
So it was refiled this way.
Okay.
Gretchen?
Yeah, I just want the record to show I'm sensitive to time, time is money,
Yeah,
so.
okay,
That's correct. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Or do you have? I don't know that, I mean, we've done direct. If he wants to redirect, he can.
No, I don't need to.
And then, I don't know that there's a reason for recross at this point.
I don't believe so. I haven't redirected it.
He hasn't redirected it, so. Can we go to,
Well, okay, I'm going to sit down and save time. It was based on the question and the answers to his question. I'll
Mr.
waive that
Pettisford.
for now. Thanks.
we'll get you.
If he wants to talk, he's gonna come up here.
Do you have any further witnesses?
No, sir.
Do you want to take a moment
No,
to
no,
break?
and my question on the list too, the township trustees, did we get to?
We haven't got to them yet.
Okay.
I think we'll take I was planning on taking the evidence, and then if the trustees want to speak, we can speak, if that's
Okay,
okay.
sounds good.
Would now be an appropriate time for break, or do you guys want to, do you want to power through?
I'm resting. It doesn't matter to me, whatever the commissioners prefer.
Let's
I
power
can-
through.
Let's power through. Commissioner Lundy, are you good with that?
I agree with JR on that, whatever the commission want to do.
We just have the resident and the trustee.
Township trustees.
Is that resident there? In favor, objective, yeah.
Number 4, we didn't do
Or number
yet.
4?
Al, can you hold on 1 second?
We didn't do number 4 yet.
Usually we kind of go on that outline, Dan.
No.
You want to ask him to make a statement? We should hold on. Al?
How long did it do the emergency? Was that in the fall?
When we had this hearing towards the end of the year.
Oh, is that what it was?
Grafton denied all 3
Yeah,
hearings.
if he wants to do
They did it as an emergency.
Okay.
And Jerry clearly said, no.
And the time before that was the engineer didn't file a report.
Oh, that's right, that's the one.
Okay.
So there's two. This is the third.
I remember, that's what I was.
What are we doing? Yeah, 'cause I don't like. Yes, they got it. Time is money.
I'm glad you did that 2021, 'cause that's just a.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to.
I'm glad you did that.
No, he has
Because
not.
I wasn't clear on it, I'm thinking that you originally signed it.
It sounded like to me just another training. I hate that. Let's just get this.
Oh, well, I just want to look at it, that's all.
So, yeah, the township doesn't really have to go because council's on his behalf, you know, but we do have a resident here. And that's on that list here, so.
Oh, great. Yeah, just go ahead and read that too. I'm gonna,
I mean, do you want to?
What do we have for a record here?
What do you mean, when we get here for record? Oh, yeah, I type it all out verbatim.
Are you a registered corporate?
No, but I type it out, I've always typed them out.
Because I'm gonna have them submit.
Eventually, yeah, they do that. Oh, this one will take a little, just take a while.
I got up later than usual this morning. I drink 2 of those every morning. And in that hour that I got up later than usual. Okay, we have everybody back?
Wait a minute. Maggie, you ready? You're good. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Prosecutor?
Can you raise your right hand for me, please, sir? Do you swear or affirm that all the testimony you may give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schrader?
Hi. Would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
And Edward Van Hoos, 308 County Road, 1171 in Nova.
Okay. Edward, who do you work for?
I'm the general manager for Lorraine Medina Rural Electric Cooperative.
Okay. And I don't represent the electric district, do
No.
I? In that light, is it okay with the commissioners if he gives a brief statement, then I'll have some questions?
Fine with me. I
Okay.
would just ask that you speak up a little bit, sir, if you don't mind.
I realize I'm way
Yeah,
up
you're
above
maybe a
that.
little bit higher than
mic.
those microphones are set up for.
If you don't mind, can you spell your last name, sir?
Sure, it's VANHOOSE. Capital H, one word.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Did you get the first name, Teresa?
Edward. Is this loud enough like this? I'll try to maintain the
They yell at
voice.
you board all the time.
Yeah, I know, when you're tall like this and that microphone's down there, it can be that way sometimes. So I just wanted to start briefly by reading a quick little excerpt from the PUCO's website, and it basically says, electric service areas or certified territories are geographic regions within which an electric distribution utility or an electric cooperative has the obligation and exclusive right to provide electric service. And then it goes on to say that the PUCO is the authority regarding service areas. So any change within an electric service territory does require PUCO approval. And they have a mapping tool on there that clearly is, it's easily accessible to anyone from the public to tell who serves what area. And for this area in question right here, Lorraine Medina Rural Electric is the provider of record. We do have this as part of our service territory. We will defend the right to serve it as much as we possibly can. Unfortunately, we've never been contacted about this. I don't know any of the people present here today. I've never been told that this development was going to occur, aside from public notices of hearings taking place. The last hearing was done in an emergency basis, so again, was not something that we were participatory in. I've never met the attorney on this side. I've never met the attorney on this side. I've never met the city administrator from Grafton. We've never been contacted by the developer. No one has come to us to discuss what kind of programs we have available, and I can tell you we have many programs available to help with economic development, sometimes even putting dollars in to assist the developer in getting things established. We do have the capability to serve this territory. I've verified that with our engineering department. We can handle the capacity of 55 homes with ease. That is a very small amount of our service territory. We cover a very large area. When you look at our record of service, as was talked about by Mr. Price earlier with regard to First Energy, we pride ourselves on a 2-hour restoration time window. So you will not find a better service record than what the co-ops have. Our incident rate for being outages within a given year can be equated with one of the best in the nation. We are on an annual basis between 1 and 2 hours outage total for members. That doesn't mean that each outage is that. That means for the entire year, that's what our members experience. We have no existing copper lines left on our system because we have been very aggressive in repairing what we have. We pride ourselves on having best-of-class electric service. And we don't only pride ourselves on it, we prove it every day with what we do. From a financial perspective, we're a not-for-profit utility. Any margins that we make over and above what we charge to our members, we give back to them at the end of the year. So not only do we make sure our rates are incredibly competitive, when we make extra money, they get it back again. So from a financial perspective, we're one of the best choices you could make. From a service perspective, we pride ourselves on excellence and will stand up to anybody else out there. I completely agree with Mr. Price on if you had to wait for First Energy. We had a single pole that had to be replaced. It took 2 weeks. So my guys, we do that within about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I get where he's coming from there. But this isn't First Energy. This is LMRE's territory. And it is very regretful to me to be standing here today and say to you, no one talked to us. We have no part in the planning of this whatsoever, even though it's our service territory and is very easily publicly available to find that out. And so I rise in opposition to the annexation based on the request to provide electric service and say that this is our territory and we would like to keep it that way.
I can't improve on that. I have no questions.
Grosh?
No.
Question from the commissioners?
You know how far away you are from this property?
We have a line running right by it.
Do you? Okay. Do you guys do underground digging and all that too for
We-
developments, or?
All new developments are underground.
Are they?
Well, it depends. Some developers would prefer, we work with the developer.
Right.
And depending on what they would like to do, sometimes we do a combination, but we prefer underground because maintenance is a lot less.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Could I add one final thing? For any annexation that occurs where we have a loss of our service territory, our policies and procedures do have conditions in them that our members who are in that territory, which would be the developer in this case, must follow. That's part of our charter. There will be a cost associated with that for any of our facilities within this area that will have to be included in relinquishing something like that. And our board does reserve the right to negotiate that as we go through, which has been established and recognized by the PUCO. So when we start talking about costs associated with this, we haven't even begun the conversation on the electric side. And that's very unfortunate that we haven't had that. Because from my perspective, I would rather work with the village and try to figure out some kind of compromise here than come in at the 11th hour and now just suddenly be thrown, in just not knowing what's going to happen. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you for your time. I'm sorry, Commissioner, did you have another question for him?
No, we keep hearing a phone.
The phone, somebody's
Yeah,
phone.
somebody's phone's got a thing going off. It's okay.
I spent 28 years as a township trustee, and I know elected officials sometimes like to make a statement. So if that's okay, I'd like to use the same procedure. He's going to make a statement as an elected trustee in Eaton Township, then I'll probably will have some questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Are you sworn, sir?
I'm sorry?
You stood up to be sworn when we started, did you not?
I did, yes, thank you.
And the name,
Yeah.
name for the record.
Well, I'm Jason Monsheen, one of the 3 trustees of Eaton Township. I thank you, the commissioners, for allowing me to speak. Matt, or Commissioner Lundy, has been through a few of these with me, and there's times where I'm up against the wall, where some of these are not a regular annexation. You have a regular annexation in front of you, and out of the 8 statutes, I still have questions about 3 of them, or actually, I just know 3 of them aren't met. I didn't get a chance to talk to our attorney before the meeting. He already mentioned 2 of those, but there's a 3rd, and I'll happily get into those here as we go along. I think Commissioner Lundy knows this, but I want to the other 2 commissioners, I want to at least advise that this is not, we're not talking about Huntington Township in South Lorraine County here. We're one of 2 townships in the county that has sewers, Lorco. The other township is, we heard it mentioned, Carlisle, but Eaton's service area of Lorco is about 3/4 of the township compared to a small portion of Carlisle. These are mainly Eaton Township residents then that are paying in the Lorco. And to allow these 55 homes, because there's a lot of begging going on, this is begging, to have this removed from the service area. I don't believe this project will be scrapped one bit if this annexation is denied today, or in the 30 days that the county commissioner manual says you got after the hearing, or a continued hearing. It won't be scrapped. And if it is, that's what the actual residents that we're kind of confused on how to get here. Some of the ones that were, I'm sorry, sir, I think you're the only one, you're a Village resident or Eaton resident? Village resident. Okay. So, and I think you're the only Village, no one here lives in Grafton Village, am I correct? So we have one Village resident. The developer also lives in Carlisle, correct? So he doesn't live in the Village.
Let's stop for a second, Jason. Jason, could you remember that we're being recorded, and this is and you could direct your comments towards the commissioners and stay looking towards the microphone when you're speaking?
Okay, yes, I'm sorry. So
That's okay.
that was my only question for the audience, I guess, was if there was anybody that lived in Grafton Village here. My point was,
It would also, if you want to take your mask off so we can hear you a little bit better.
Okay.
While you're doing that, that would be helpful also.
my point was, for some of the residents I did get to talk to, with COVID obviously going around knocking on doors, but that were mailed the notification from Eaton Township, and then the commissioners' meeting, the document for today was closed to the public. If they can't get on Zoom to comment, just wanted to throw that out there that, is there Eaton Township residents that wanted to speak today? I believe so. They're going to speak against it. I don't know who would be for it. Because ultimately, I can speak for the ones that are neighboring. They're going to be against it because they heard the developer or the landowner say in the last time we were in front of the commissioners over Zoom on December 1st, big snowstorm that day, if you remember, Matt.
Can I object to the speculation here?
Well, it's a recorded Zoom meeting. I don't think the
About what the residents would.
Hold on a second. I'm going to give them some latitude because
I
this is
will, I will. I
this
just
is
wanted to
let me
jump
finish.
in.
Let me finish. To me, there's a difference between affording a trustee as an elected official a chance to make a statement.
Sure.
And then Mr. Schrader, I'm assuming, is going to come in and elicit testimony.
Certainly. Thank you.
So from my perspective, Jason, and so you're aware from where I'm coming from for this, when you're speaking now, you're speaking as an elected official to tell us
Correct.
what you believe to be important in making a decision as an elected official. The board here, as you know, needs to make decisions and make a decision on this petition based on the facts that are in the record.
Sure.
Because of the way your council is proceeding, which is fine, this part of that presentation is not in the record. Al will talk to you when you're done with your presentation, and we'll bring you through and bring facts into the record.
Sure.
That satisfies my concerns. Thank you.
Al, do you agree with that? Yes, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, so.
Make sense to you?
Yeah, but simply saying our residents, if they wanted to
You can speak as a
talk.
politician, as a trustee. and
Yeah,
that's
well,
fine.
okay, as the only trustee then in Eaton Township on the Lorco system, you would be shorting myself as a Lorco payer of the 3/4 of Eaton Township and Carlisle, a small portion of it. The 55 homes, because again, if we don't get more people on the system, the price will just go up, brought down from Avon Lake. Lorco has to, deal with that price increase that comes from Avon Lake, and it's going to go on to the residents. So the big point, though, that I've heard this whole time is, out of these 8 statutes, on the balance of the general good, we've talked a lot about how exciting it would be for Grafton. They've stated, oh, well, that'd be great. That's not based on the general good, and it's definitely a detriment to the township. You're definitely detrimenting the Lorco payers of Eaton Township, shorting us additional homes onto the system. Number 5 in your county commissioner's annexation manual says the municipality has adopted an ordinance stating what services they can provide, right? We've seen that, it's in your packets. But an approximate starting date, it even says an approximate, but they cannot give you an approximate starting date if nothing's in their district. Again, we're not talking about even LaGrange and LaGrange Village. LaGrange Township does not have sewers. If that was annexed in, the sewers would come from the village, and they could probably start it as soon as the paperwork was signed and it was signed with the auditor or filed with the county. But in this case, why are they not at Nowaka first to even, because if you approve this annexation, you take the voice away from Eaton Township. If you approve this, we don't get to go to Nowaka and Mr. Lund, you're the president, I understand from the paper, of Nowaka. We wouldn't have a voice anymore because it's no longer in Eaton Township. It would be in Grafton. So you're taking the voice away from Eaton Township residents, and I believe there's bigger population of Eaton Township is in Grafton Village, minus their prison population. So I just want to keep that in mind. And on the general good, I think we've already touched on, this is ready to go today in Eaton Township. We've heard from all the services. Don't want to question me on police and fire, but we'll get into it. And to say that the sheriff's department, the budget or the commissioners just approved, is going to be better, I'd like to have Sheriff's Committee in here. He'll tell us who'd be better prepared for this. And I also do have a problem when we get into it about this agreement. I did not see this last time, and I know Danny asked for a copy of it. It still has Mr. Ennis's name and Kukowski as president on what was signed from the village. I don't know if there was an updated one. But I see in there Grafton Village would pay for the turn lanes. If I was a developer, yeah, I'd love to have this annexed and the village would pay for my turn lane too, as part of maybe it's in the agreement. Usually developers have to pay for the turn lanes or some sort of TIF. We have TIFs. I can also, North Ridgeville, it's the only municipality we have not faced an annexation with. We have 10 homes that are served by Ridgeville, but we're not annexed. I worked with Mayor Gillock on that, a cooperative agreement. We never came to some hearing that would cause conflict between different parties. And we also have a JED written out with Ridgeville if it was ever implemented on Archer Road. There was so much talked about today, I could probably just go on, but I'll let Al or Dan take over, and I'll just see if I hit on them as we go.
Okay. Would this be an appropriate time for a quick break?
Fine with us.
Okay.
Commissioners, you want to take a break?
That's fine.
Okay, thanks. I'll be back.
Al, how long do you need? How long do you need?
About 5 minutes.
Okay, because we're looking at, I mean, we got a hard stop in 55 minutes, so if we can keep it to 5 minutes, that would be great.
I don't know where he's going. I think you're going out.
We're good? Did you say we're good?
Yes.
This is Assistant Prosecutor Dan Petticord. We're at 12:25 or thereabouts right now. On the last break, I've spoken with council, I've spoken with the commissioners. Because of some commitments that are going to occur shortly, it is unlikely we will be able to finish this hearing today. We are therefore going to suspend the hearing and continue it until April 20th at 9:30.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, April 20th at 9:30, at which point Mr. Schrader will continue with his case and begin the direct examination, followed obviously by cross of the trustee. And I believe at that point, I believe that that is acceptable to both counsel, all three counsel, Gretchen. If it's not acceptable, please come up and tell me now. If not,
It's acceptable.
It's acceptable for Tangi.
thank you very much. And the commissioners are in accord with that.
Yes.
So at this point, the hearing is
Well,
continued.
before, just one brief statement.
Yeah.
Ryan Gambala had mentioned a email. I'm going to ask that that be marked as Exhibit B. He's going to email it to me. I don't have it. He's going to email it to the other two attorneys, to Gretchen and to Attorney White, and then we'll get a copy of that to Teresa, so that you have that as Eaton Township's Exhibit B. And thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Whatever you submit to Teresa, if you could also email to me, you all have my address now.
I will do that.
I would appreciate it.
Thanks.
And then barring anything further, the hearing is continued until April 20th at 9:30.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do you need a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes.
I don't know if we're allowed to close.
No, because we're continuing it.
Okay, we are continuing. That's what I asked.
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll move on to B, other business, Madam Clerk.
I have
Okay.
nothing.
And C, clerk's report. I can just read it if you
Yeah,
prefer. Wednesday, April 7th at 9:30 a.m. Commissioners meeting, so we'll see you back here bright and early tomorrow morning. And D, adjournment. Is there any further business at this point, gentlemen? Okay, move to adjourn. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It's nice to have somebody in the
None
audience.
opposed, Teresa.
Excuse me?
You had none opposed.
No.